Ladies and gentlemen, we are delighted to have you with us to participate and share in the first webinar pre-event of Share Budapest 2020. Our host today will be architect Balázs Csápó, President of Beck Chamber of Architects in Budapest, architect Șerban Țigănaș, the General Secretary of the International Union of Architects and the President of the Share Society, and Florin Mindirigiu, the founder of Share Architects.
Well, hello everybody. I'm happy to be here, where it's here, with you together. I'm sorry not being in Budapest, but hopefully we'll have the chance to meet in a couple of months in a Share event scheduled for July, for 2nd of July in Budapest. I'm very happy to be here with nice speakers and my co-moderator, Balázs Csápó, which I say hello and share the microphone. Hello, Balázs.
Hello, everyone. I would like to welcome everybody in this session on behalf of the Budapest Chamber of Architects. And I'm also very looking forward to meet us in person, because what I really like about Share events is that brings architects personally together. But as life is life, and the sentence of this year is transforming the world through architecture, and it seems that the world is transforming us now at the moment. So life is always a constant change, and we always have to adjust to these changes and live these new times that we are now facing. So I'm happy to be here together with you in this online platform, and welcome everyone. And as a moderator, now I will ask Mr. Florin Mindirigiu to say some welcoming words to us.
Hello everybody, I'm very happy to be here today. Like a pre-event for Share Budapest in July this year, I want to say hello to and welcome to the speakers from Netherlands, from Israel, from Greece, and for our partners today, two very big and very strong companies. And I want to say hello to Zoltan from Reiners and to Cosmin from Terra Steel. And of course, to say hello to our moderators today, Șerban and Balázs. And I hope to be a very nice event and to be pleasant and very useful for the architects. Thank you.
Thank you, Florin.
Thank you. And I have to tell you in advance that this session will be separated in 3 parts. The first part will be guest lectures from our noble architects. The second part will be a debate, and the third part will be a Q&A session. And I would like to welcome you again in the second webinar of Transforming the World Through Architecture. And we have these 2 sponsors today, Renes Hungary and Terra Steel Romania, and thank you for the companies to sponsoring us with this, I think, very important events. We have, as I mentioned, in the third part, Q&A, in which we would like to ask our audience to submit their questions for the speakers in the Q&A button. So in your control panel, there is in the bottom a Q&A mark, and there you can write your questions. We have 2 options. If you type video and follow your questions, we can ask you to join and make your questions live on video. if you type moderator and followed by your questions, then one of our moderators will address the questions to the speaker. So we will announce this section soon, and I think it is time to start the first part of this event. So first of all, I would like to introduce Mr. Tiramakos Andropoulos from Greece. Hello. He is founder of Tense Architectural Network. He is the first-time winner of competition for the regeneration of Athens city center. That was quite a famous competition, I think. And his practice works includes other several competition winner proposals, and as well as awarded residences. They were nominated for Miss Fandero Award twice, and residence in Sikamono was shortlisted in the same award in 2013. And TEN participated in the Architecture Biennale of Venice twice. Mr. Tiramakos, the screen is yours.
Thank you. So thank you for the invitation in this pre-event and also in Share Budapest 2020 that hopefully will take place in July. Post-pandemic paradise is the title of my presentation, and it's in 8 points. It seems reasonable to wonder about the role of architecture in times of crisis. How different should it be before and after the pandemic? Architecture is essentially a way of protection. It creates spaces of intimacy, protection from cosmos and its threats, with the residence being its primary field. Protection from cosmos, but also in contact with it. (2020), end of March. All 5 owners of the residences we have completed enter in confinement. Admittedly, the Greeks paradoxically disciplined themselves in restrictive measures. Residence in Kifisia, on the borders of Athens, hosts 2 small children and the owner, which usually traveled very often. Protected under the canopy volume, but also in contact with the yard. Residence in Kalteknoupolis for a currently enclosed family of 4 between 2 sloping walls, but in contact with the opposite hill. Residence in Sikamino, a family of 3 under a green roof with a rhomboid shape, partially buried in the ground. Still open though, in its olive grove. Residence in Heraklion, again a protective volume shelter with a hovering couple for all, allowing contact with the sun through the large section of the facade and the hidden outer bath. Residence in Megara, probably the most known one, absolutely amidst nature, triangular, designed for enclosure, a paradisiac fortress, inclined green roof, protective walls, magnetic view of the opposite mountain. Escape from the city, perfect for quarantine. 2020, beginning of April. Despite confinement, 100,000 dead worldwide, with the virus spreading within 4 months. 0.013% of the world's population. 430 BC, Athens. Approximately 100,000 dead, but in the same city, among which Pericles, 1/3 of its population. Just 2 years after the completion of the ultimate classic masterpiece. The Parthenon still radiates, but Athens never regains its power. 540 AD, Justinian plague, Constantinople in full swing, 5 to 10,000 dead daily, just 4 years after the completion of the ultimate Byzantine masterpiece. Hagia Sophia operates incessantly, while for 2 centuries until the retreat of the pandemic, the number of deaths is estimated to 25 to 50 million. The Roman Empire never regains its power. 1350 AD, Black Death, climax. 75 to 200 million dead, the population of Florence is reduced by half, of Europe by at least 1/30. From 1336 AD and its outbreak in China, the pandemic claimed the lives of about 25 million people until it reached Europe. To do so, though, it took not 4 months, but 14 years. What we are facing is not new, it's perhaps faster. Pandemics are as old as cities, that is, civilization. Civilization without cities, without human density, the fever of cities, is impossible. They are the ones, though, that occasionally pay the heavy price. Athens of the 5th century BC or Constantinople of the 6th century AD, where the number of dead reached 10,000 daily, may seem like airy myths, but they were not. Modern medical science may obviously mitigate the effects of a disease, with New York City counting 10,000 deaths at least last week, but in total. The research that connects the possible spread of the virus of 2019 and that of earlier ones of our century with their transmission by wild animals, but also with the catastrophic human intervention towards them or towards their immediate environment, seems convincing. When the forest where the bat sleeps or flies carelessly is deforested, how can it not resort to the adjacent field with the excessive pitches that are supposed to supply global demand? Its saliva on my pitch is an absolutely natural evolution. However, deforestation did not cause the previous pandemics. The forced confinement in an otherwise radiant Athens that had just begun a civil Peloponnesian War, or the overpopulation of Byzantine superpower Constantinople, or the loaded with grain and rats ships of the thriving medieval Genoa also did not cause them. They may have helped them explode, though. Excessive growth has necessarily nurtured its own destruction. We can't have the one without the other, that other that probably makes circles. Cities will change because of the pandemic, simply because of the confinement and restriction of their living content. But cities are exactly that content, not buildings. Urban and architectural design, guided by excessive fear, could slip into a technocratic, overly designed path of excessive control, security, social distancing, hysterical hygiene. It may happen, but it doesn't make sense. It's against the very nature of the city, and it cannot stop the disaster. Contrary now to the city, paradisiac nature. Mass tourism, the temporal, modern lifeline from the overcrowding of precarious cities, is perhaps the most affected human activity at the moment. Along with the world's lockdown enormous hotel complexes, cruise ships are immobilized as well, these irrational, unclosed floating cities, one of the most extreme forms of mass tourism. There are articles that already claim that tourism in Greece will increase sharply after the pandemic. since due to the successful way the country has dealt with it, Greece will be considered one of the safest destinations. But the truth is, no one can be completely safe anywhere unless they are alone. As a result, there is a risk that the design of the resorts will also slip in a direction of complete disintegration of density, of denial of human and built contact, which may equally affect landscapes as mass tourism does. So another direction. After completing 5 residencies, the pandemic found us planning 5 resorts, 3 in Greece and 2 elsewhere in Africa. A hotel in Cyclades in front of a small beach with the development of small-scale cubic rooms according to traditional standards and the feeling of a settlement. The unfolding of common areas towards the sea and the trees is attempted in a freer, more organic way. Hotel in Africa, on Lake Malawi and in synergy with its soft dunes, autonomous, circular units are subdued on the contour lines in a curvilinear manner, looking like they are being dynamically pushed out of the elongated central building. Hotel in Cyclades, again, a small complex with dark stone bays made of the island stone, on which small, voluminous, sample, playful, unnecessarily white volumes are interlaced like a sculpted piece of marble. Hotel in Africa, again, opposite of a natural refuge for mountain gorillas in Uganda. Its linear development is trying to deal with the extremely sloping field with economy and adaptability, without destroying it. Last, hotel in Cyclades, with a linear diagonal growth along an impressive natural ridge of curvilinear rocks. The resort is once again developing as a continuous settlement that seems necessarily contrapuntal to an also linear dugout development of ensuite hospitality spaces. So the initial question about the role of architecture after the pandemic and on the occasion of the previous 5 resorts could now be answered provocatively. The architecture of hospitality should not be any different from what it should have been, and that usually is not. Within measure, not immoderate. In contact with nature, with respect to it, with a gentle human scale, ensuring both the desired escape into paradise, but also a life-giving density. Human contact. Even amidst pure nature. If a pandemic seems to question immoderation, the way to follow becomes perhaps evident. Thank you for your attention.
Mr. Telemakos, thank you very much. That was very interesting to see this well built up presentation and how you find the line from the past to the present. And for me, it is quite obvious that we need to find a new balance in our behavior. And the past years were all about mobility, and maybe we should change this point of view into some kind of stillness and stopping our minds as well. Now we go on our second presentation. I would like to introduce Mr. Cosmin Patroiu, who is the CEO of Terastil Romania, one of the most important manufacturers of thermal insulation panels and thin-coated structures in Central and Eastern Europe, with production units in Romania and Serbia. He has more than 15 years of activity in the field of construction materials. His presentation will be about leading to the world to come. Mr. Patraiu, the screen is yours.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Ioana Potkivanok, because now we are virtually, we are in Hungary. My name is Cosmin Pătroiu, and I take care of Terastil Romania and Terastil Serbia. Just 2 seconds introduction. We are one of the market leader in sandwich panels and light steel structures in Central Eastern Europe, with factories in Romania and Serbia. Just to make an idea, last year on the Hungarian market, we sold close to 700,000 square meters of sandwich panels, pure peer and mineral wool. In the next 1 minute and 40 seconds, I will present you a movie regarding what means lead by Terastil, which is a new concept for the industrial buildings, and then we'll discuss a little bit about this. So. Okay, so now I just want to point back the main 6 characteristics of the lead concept, what we have here. So it's an increased resistance to external factors. So we are able to give warranty up to 40 years for the steel structures and also for the sandwich panels, what we are using. Then what is very important for all of us we have a better reaction to fire, which is BS1D0, and the fire resistance for the spans of 4 and 6 meters. All of this stuff is bringing us to a cost of optimization with up to 20% in the energy efficiency of the materials that we are using. Nevertheless, the sandwich panels that we are using, we developed in the last 3.5 years with Dow Chemicals, one of the most important chemical companies in the world, and with the technology V+ Perform, we managed to realize a saving of 20% for the sandwich panels that you use on the buildings. I don't want to talk much about the carbon footprint, but all the stuff that I was telling you before is helping our society to have a better carbon footprint and to save the planet. Okay, not that much as like the pandemic that happened now, but this is something that is extraordinary. So we're thinking for the future. For the last point, which we have here, enhanced structural design process, I will go a little bit further, and I will just want to show that our company can deliver the complete solution. So here is the complete solution, and this means that we can give consultancy with our teams in projecting an architecture for everything what you need for the industrial buildings, and not only, we are open to new ideas, and the ideas will come from you architects. Then we, in order to be more effective, we make the BIM library of our products, and besides this, we take care of everything what means transportation and delivery to the sites, and in some cases we can do also the construction. So I just want to show you, but now the stop a little bit. Can you hear me? I think the internet stopped.
We still hear you.
You can hear me? Yeah. So these are few buildings. We put here more buildings from Hungary and from this region. And this is what we are doing. And I'm waiting for your questions and waiting for cooperation with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Cosmin Pătroiu. It's my turn now to introduce the next architect speaker. And it's a great pleasure for me to call Dorte Christensen, Netherlands. She's the director of Atelier Pro, and she's an awarded architect in healthcare design. She got SBID award in 2015. Her interest goes to social dynamics. She loves to play at the threshold between public and private, where urban space meets the building, thus creating opportunities for flexible interpretation. She got a lot of exemplary projects like Meander Medical Center, Admiral van Ruyter Hospital, Scheldehof Residential Care Center, or Willebrood Care Center. Dorte advocates multiple uses in buildings like schools, administrative buildings, or cultural centers. And she got a very attractive title for today, but I leave this with you. Dorte, please take the floor, I would like to say, but take the screen. And of course, I invite you to unmute your microphone.
I'm trying to get everything working.
And double click on the screen, and maybe it starts. Shall we call a little bit of help from our friends from the technical side?
Yeah. Could you move to the next slide? Yeah, thank you. I'm Dorte Christensen from an office in The Hague in Holland. We work 50 people. Next slide, please. With a great variety of different jobs, care, cure, education, dwellings, theaters, cultural places. Yes, please. Whatever happened, we were well on the way into the 21st century, and then this happened, yes? And we all got into a lockdown. we had this fantastic tool that made it possible for us to go into lockdown. We all took our computers, went away home to our dining room tables. All of us are sitting on dining room tables working. And that can happen. And we can do that because of the computer, yeah? Because of the internet, yeah? And we know that we don't need to be face to face. We've known that for the last 10, 15 years. So it is possible, yeah? And this little devil got us working this way. So now we are sitting here at the dining room table working, all of us, yeah? But in a way, it's sort of very backwards because all of us are sitting in our own little cubicle, working. No contact, no interaction, no social structures. All social structures go via the computer. So actually, we're back to the brave new world of Jacques Tati, sitting in these cubicles, just working. Yeah? And that happened because of the computer, because we got 4G, soon we have 5G, 6G, whatever, faster. We got all our data in the cloud, we got the internet. It's all possible, but yeah, is it enough? I mean, remember when we got the internet, you got these internet gurus told us that we don't need books anymore because we got the internet. We cannot find all the knowledge in the cloud, but we still have books, yeah? And look what happened to books, and look what happened to bookstores and libraries. Libraries became social hubs, social living rooms where you could go, you could read, you can borrow books. So it's mixing culture, information. It's becoming a community. So libraries and bookstores are community places, yeah? And schools. I think it's about 10 to 15 years ago, it was predicted that the need of schools are lessening because we can do things via internet. We don't need the schools. We don't need all these children in one classroom. They can all sit at home with their computer and their earphones and get taught. But that didn't happen, yeah? In fact, schools became much more than classrooms because we got the computer, because we got the ability of being very individual and doing everything in the computer. We got this growth towards creating social spaces, understanding that the importance of social structures for the learning process, yeah. In fact, schools added up with libraries, with community spaces, with sports facilities, and became hubs. In each neighborhood had this hub, this social hub, where people come together, do things. You can even say that these schools were used as a gentrification tool in the city planning. So from being one-dimensional spaces, they became much more double layered, much more diverse, yeah? So the space, in fact, became, because we could have individuality, we could use the computer, we don't need each other, but it developed opposite around, and we sort of sense that we need space for community, we need space for social structures. And it's a known fact that pupils learn better together than they learn from their teacher. It's a known fact that when you work in a community and you have this interaction and this dynamic, the product on what you are working on is getting better. Yeah? So we know that we don't have to be face to face because of the technology, but the technology is not enough, yeah? So we know that we lost a lot because of this virus, because of this loneliness, because of this being home back in your dining room table. We lost this, we lost community. Yeah, of course you can do community via Teams, but it's not the same as being face to face, yeah? So having been in lockdown now for 1-2 months, I think we all start realizing, yeah, it's possible, we can do it, but the question is, yeah, do we want to? So we have to deal with this virus, we have to deal with this disease, we have to, the way that we are transforming our office now, so within a few weeks we can work here differently, but we can work here together and we can work safe together. So we are changing things, but we still want to go and take care of this community building, take care of how you interact together, because in the end of the day, we are social creatures and we cannot exist working at home behind our dining room table all the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Dorte. Just one short comment. I'm not sitting at the dining room table. I'm directly on the floor, but you can't notice this.
But still, you're alone.
Our next speaker, he is Mr. Nog Zoltan, who is a country manager of Aluminium Hungary. Hello, Zoltan. He has more than 12 experience with design and execution of successful business strategies, motivating diverse teams to produce significant results. He has a remarkable background in recruiting and developing top performers in the organization. Focused on operational excellence and efficiency, he's also a very good communicator. Zoltan, the floor, the screen, whatever is yours.
Thank you very much for this introduction. The topic I have brought to you today is aluminium and aluminium as a green construction material. You can see it already in the picture. This will be the topic of my presentation. And okay, I hope I can move to the next slide.
Did you the control of the screen?
Yes, yeah. Now it's working, thank you. So I have 3 topics, but these 3 topics will be linked together. And basically they are about aluminum and the sustainable usage of aluminum in the construction industry. So first topic is the life cycle of aluminum. The second topic is about circular economy. I will briefly speak about the concept and how aluminum fits into that. And finally, I will shortly talk about the sustainable buildings. Okay, looks like I still don't have the control, so please move to the next slide. Thank you very much. Here you can briefly see the life cycle of the aluminum products with the dark blue steps in the bottom. We represent the primary production of the aluminum, and this is a very energy intensive process. So we try to move away from primary production and we try to focus more on aluminum recycling, which is represented with the light blue and the green steps of the life cycle process of the product. I don't want to spend much time about this. I just wanted to emphasize the importance of this. And if we can move on with the presentation, I want to share some interesting facts about aluminum that maybe was not known to everybody. So the industrial production of aluminum was started in 1856, although initially it was a low quantity. 40 years later, a new method was invented for the production, and from 1896, the mass production really started which means that we have aluminum products with us for more than 150 years. And very interesting is that almost 75% of all the aluminum products that have ever been produced are in one way or another still in use and still with us today. And the reason for that is double. One of them is that the aluminum products in the construction industry can have the life cycle of 75 years, which is comparable with the life cycle of the building where it is built into. And on the other hand, which is very important, and that's why I show the process of aluminum recycling, it is that aluminum is 100% recyclable without quality loss. So basically, this is a real recycling process and not a downcycling process, as with other materials, which use quality during the recycling. Currently, 50% of the world's aluminum production is coming from the so-called primary production, and the other 50% is already coming from recycled aluminum, which is very important because, as you can see, we can save 95% of the energy during the recycling of the aluminum compared to the primary production. And if we move to the next slide, I will also show you why I was talking about this. Because aluminum perfectly fits in the so-called concept of circular economy. This is a concept that we can hear today more and more often, which basically says that we should minimize the use of new raw material in our production process, and we should aim to maximize the reutilization of the material that was already used in one way or another in the product. And if we move on, then I will show you the so-called cradle-to-cradle certificate, which is basically a measure or a certification process that certifies if a product and the company is aiming to be part of the circular economy. Basically, this is a design and manufacturing concept that focuses on 5 main areas that can be seen in the picture in the bottom right corner. Material health and material reutilization are the main areas which are linked to the product itself, and the other 3 categories, the use of renewable energy, social fairness, and the water stewardship, is rather linked to the company itself that is producing this product. It is about the concept and philosophy and processes that the company is using. We as Reiners Aluminium already have this cradle-to-cradle certificate, and more of our products are certified in this way. This is also to show that we really focus on being sustainable with our product and with our operations. And if we move to the left side of my presentation, then I would like to talk about sustainable buildings. And here I would like to talk about 2 main certification programs. One of them is LEED and the other one is BREEAM. I'm pretty sure that it is well known for everybody. Although there are some other certification programs like the Minesh from Switzerland, but BREEAM is the biggest one and LEED from the US is the second biggest one. So here you can see in this picture that when a property developer aims to build a new office building or whatever kind of structure, usually they try to get a LEED or a BREEAM certification for this building, which also shows their contribution and their devote towards sustainable buildings and sustainable economy. And with the help of our systems and solution, already 24 LEED points can be gained during the construction of the building, which is quite significant if we look at the maximum achievable 110 points. If we move to the next one, then similarly to the LEED, BREEAM has a very similar philosophy and concept, although there are not 9 but 10 categories where points can be awarded, and the maximum points is 161. But here also we can contribute with 22 BREEAM credits towards the successful certification of the building. So this was my short presentation about sustainability. I hope I could give you a good insight how aluminium and our aluminium doors, windows and facade system can contribute to the sustainable architecture. I thank you very much for your attention, and I hope that we can have some cooperation in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Zoltan. Please stay with us. There are good news from aluminium. Balázs, please take the lead for the continuation.
Thank you, Sherban. So our next presentation is from Mr. Haim Dotan from Israel, who is founder of the award-winning international firm Haim Dotan Architects and Urban Designers. They have offices in Tel Aviv and Shanghai, and they work focusing very much on innovative ecological architecture, urban design and planning. That is a very important issue today, I guess. He personally is a designer of the Chinese Zhangjiang Grand Canyon Glass Bridge. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it well. The Israel Pavilion in the World Expo 2010 in Shanghai. And they have also some good examples in the institutional and commercial project in Israel and worldwide. Professor Haim Dotan is also a professor at Fonda University in Shanghai. He's the director of Ecological Architecture Design Institute at the Tadel Masters Academy and affiliated with the Shanghai Institute of Visual Arts. So that is a very rich curriculum. And furthermore, Mr. Dotan is a person who writes haikus, and I was asked to read one of his haikus just to raise our spirit a little bit. And his book was published in Hungarian as well. So let me read his poem for today in English and in Hungarian shortly afterwards. After the night rain, spiderweb, woven diamonds of water drops. Éjszakai eső után vízcseppek gyémántjaiból szövi hálóját a pók. Mr. Dotan, the screen is yours. And don't forget to unmute your microphone.
I don't see myself.
Okay, we see you and hear you.
I don't know if I have my the screen, the monitor. Let's see. I'm asking again for the request.
Hello, Mr. Dotan.
Hi.
Please go to the green label above and press
I did.
View Up. And now you have to double click the screen.
It's okay.
Now you should have control.
Okay. Yeah, good evening. Everything is okay. You know, life is always a story, and we all have many stories to tell. But I always like to start with a poem, and I always like to start with a big heart, and with nature and harmony and balance and beauty, because this is what is so abundant and free and so beautiful. So I go to New York, upstate New York, or anywhere in the world. Telemachos was talking about Greece, Evcharisto, and Greece is so beautiful, and Hungary is so beautiful. Every place is so beautiful. And this is just a lake, early morning. It's 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the morning. It's so quiet. It's so tranquil. It is so peaceful. It's like what life is all about. It's heaven. So how can you not write a poem when you are in this place? And so, yes, I write poetry. Sometimes it's short, sometimes it's long. And this is a poem that I wrote in China climbing a mountain and actually saying that my best friend is the bamboo stick that I'm holding in my hand when I climb and I need somebody to support me. So nature is supporting me, right? And so I wrote a book, a few books, and one of them was After the Rain in 2010. It was published in Shanghai when I designed the World Expo, the Israel World Expo in Shanghai. And I was the general contractor and the builder and the whole thing, not only the designer. And this book was very short and beautiful. And 7 years afterwards, about 3 years ago, I was in Budapest and with a big a poetry reading. It was a very wonderful and touching. And so life can be very simple because it's all about, I think, love and about respect. And I will read this poem, and this is what it was all about. You know, people don't like spiders, but after the rain, spider web is woven diamonds of water drops. Because after the rain, all of a sudden, it becomes jewelry. You just need to see. You just need to really go deep into our most beloved Mother Earth and treasures that she provides us with. And so, excuse me, the great philosopher in China, Lao Tzu, 2,500 years ago, said, "Dafa zu ran." Everything comes from nature, but everything in nature is functional. Even though we look at this beautiful picture and says this is beautiful, but nature is about survival and function and science, and not about beauty. Men or human beings think about beauty and ugliness. So these are flowers, you know. This is again in the United States. They look like a chain of beautiful red hearts and and you know, tears all combined together. I mean, we cannot do anything better than nature. Nature's got vast amount of ideas and innovations. And so got stuck. Can you move it to the next one? Yeah, so the question is, if we are born to something so beautiful as nature, and there's a delay here. I wanted to go to the picture in the back. Yeah, this one is where is the humanity is going to in the 21st century, 22nd century. We're definitely not talking about the Ichthyosaurs and Calligratis 2,000 years ago, right? We're talking about us, our children, our future generations. And so are they going towards being in harmony with nature, or are they going with tradition and the beauty of our immense culture? Or are we going after innovations and cars and money? Where do we go? This is part of my questions in China for 20 years. So going to the next one, there is one sound. It's not even a language, and the sound like birds, you know, and the sound is I. And I in English is me. I am. So when we talk in English about I, that means me, our ego, ourselves, but exactly the same sound to 1.5 billion people. Chinese, when they say I, it means love. It's unbelievable, which love is giving. And I in English is me, which is taking. So we somehow need to rethink our psychological, our mental attitude about the sound of I. And where do we want to go? We have immense amount of problems worldwide. We have pollutions of air pollution, and we have water pollution, and we have traffic, mobility, tremendous 100 years of insanity, where we spend so much energy and resources and get stuck and waste billions of hours on needless, but we don't think about I'm sorry, we don't think about the globe. We don't think about Mother Earth. We don't use innovations by nature, which is like magnets, but we drive using oil. And this is a tremendously stupid thing that we've done in the past 80 years. Wall housing, which is visual pollution. where we built high density. Essentially, the high density is not required in many places, but we need to deal with that. It's all about, I think, in many places, greed and money, and not a necessity of humanity to live on high-rise buildings. Well, now we're facing with global warming, and the cities will be slowly being effective. Venice and Los Angeles and Miami and Shanghai, we're going to be in 20, 30, 40 years, we'll see what's happening. And the coronavirus, which is a teeny little thing that showed us, hey guys, you got to be a little more respectful of Mother Earth, and you got to be really more respectful towards one another. And I'm that little, and I locked you all, the whole world, 7, 8 billion people in prisons, while we, the animals and the plants, are all free. So this is a big warning from Mother Earth. And what do we architects need to do? I do think, and I'm not going to show 20 projects, but rather maybe one, which is about attitude. The Zhangjiajie glass bridge is about the thinking dialogue with nature, which is more about I as love. And it was the first glass bridge in the world. It's a story. Why is it a glass bridge? Why would an architect design a glass bridge? And why would an architect design and not an engineer? And so I came to this place in Hunan. It's in Zhangjiajie, the great, fantastic canyon, and with a client. And this is where Avatar, you know, the film Avatar was shot, but it was not that famous. And then the client told me that he wants to design a bridge. And I told him, well, why do you want to build a bridge on a canyon? And he said, I want to make money. And I said, but you know, a bridge which is about 450 meters long, probably is going to destroy nature, because the size of the beams is going to be huge, 4 or 5 meters. And he didn't care. So I simply, we were standing there, 3 people, the client, the developer, his wife, and myself. And I'm Israeli, I'm not Chinese, and he doesn't speak English, and I don't speak Chinese that well. And I told him one sentence. I told him, Daying, Shisheng, Daxiang, Wuxing, which means from Lao Tzu, great sound is unheard. You don't hear sound and you don't see a form. So in a sense, I told him, I will design this bridge with you only on one condition, that we do our best to make this bridge invisible, to make it disappear, but not only by clouds. And so we start thinking, so how do we make it disappear? And we said, okay, glass is one idea. So it was not about the design, but rather respect of nature, and rather working in dialogue with nature. And I think the tendency now worldwide is becoming a lot more stronger, and people are more aware of working with Mother Earth instead of working against it. And so this bridge at the end turned out to be, after 3.5 years, the first glass bridge in the world. It turned out to be about 60 centimeters of depth instead of 4 meters that the structure engineer requested for 3 years. And it's a bridge which actually is not about the design, but it's about the fact that 800 people to 1,000 people come to the bridge, and they stay on the glass, and they stay on the bridge, and they are in glory of nature. You know, the bridge is the teacher, not the architect. The architect is only a bridge of how to make project which can bring to people's attention that it is, sorry, that nature is magnificent. And so the bridge opens up, and the bridge is very heavy, by the way. It's about, weighs about 2,200 tons. So there's no vibrations and then all the problems. And because it's glass, it creates a fantastic, everyone is happy, basically. It is the only project as an architect that I've ever been and involved in that everyone is happy. The developer makes money. The people are very happy to be on the bridge. The government is making taxes. And the biggest thing of them all, the farmers. The farmers, the poor farmers that for thousands of years were poor, they started making money for the first time in their history, because there are 5 million visitors and each one is paying $20. So that's like $80 to $100 million revenues from the bridge. And the bridge does not say anything, it's just silent. And $100 million every year. And now there are 2,200 glass bridges in China, glass platforms. And what do people do? They walk on it and they say, wow, nature is so beautiful. So here is the role of the architect to design something that will bring to our attention that we can, first of all, develop in a very remote places using ecological architecture. We can use our ingenuity and respect to Mother Earth and develop very remote places. And here is, I got an honorary citizen of Zhangjiajie, not for design, not for architecture, for the contribution to the economic and social development of Zhangjiajie. And the whole province, after 4 years of 60 million inhabitants, 60 million got out of poverty. And this is unbelievable achievement in China, because President Xi Jinping is pushing for getting out of poverty for another 700 million people. So it's not only density, but it's our respect as designers to the surrounding, to the neighborhood. And by the way, Tilamakos, I liked your projects and how they were situated on Mother Earth. And also our beloved 50 architects in the firm of Dorte. And so why do we have to build like that? Why do we have to build in nature with high density buildings and destroying nature? And why do we have to do these things? I mean, we can leave, this is just one of the projects I'm working in China with many other architects, where the buildings are more invisible and the courtyard, the sky courtyards. And so it's all ecological building that are about wind and water, and building that are not separated, standing like dancers, but rather they hug each other. And there is what I think is the projects, buildings in high density should have a dialogue with each other and should respect each other and not stand alone as sculptures to the beauty of whoever it is, but rather become more urban and more humble when they come together. And this is the future. You know, these are the future students of ours, or architects, or people. A 1.5 year old baby, and she's already on this. It's unbelievable. By the time she comes to the university, she knows and they know everything. So I think the second thing is not necessarily only projects and architecture, but it's education is the most important thing right now. And this is what I've been doing as a professor in Shanghai, teaching for 10 years as a head of a department. And even Lao Tzu in this situation again, you know, his concept is teaching without using words. So don't teach, let nature teach. And here is an example. I take my students, they're young, they're 18, I take them to the mountains, Huangshan, the yellow mountain in China. And what happens is that I tell them that the energy of life, ecology, sustainability is the chi of life. It's the energy of life. And so in order to get to understand nature, I cannot teach about nature. But when it rains, we go outside and we paint in the rain. So when the students are painting, they do with watercolor one line, and the rain makes another line, and they make one line and another line. So the painting is being done by nature, by the rain and the students. In the morning, it dries out and they see their creation with nature and they feel nature. And the same way also with poetry, we write poetry on top of the mountains, and every student writes poetry. Thousands of my students, they all write poetry. And so this is what I think we need to do. The teacher is a gardener, it's not a teacher. The teacher is a gardener that simply waters and hugs the flowers, and the flowers are students, and every flower is beautiful and it blossoms when the time is right. And so we are gardeners, they're flowers, and we need simply to connect them to nature. And this is a message of love, a message of humbleness and respect, respect from person to a person, to creativity, to the projects, but also, again, to Mother Nature. This is a painting I did many years ago, a drawing. It says, beauty, just close your eyes and let the clouds lead. Meaning we don't need to necessarily to see every time or to listen every time, but sometimes beauty is just by feeling and by doing less. And so I want to thank you very much. And I hope that we will get back to our senses as people who are just passerbys on Mother Earth. We don't control the ecology. We don't control Mother Earth. We are just tourists. And again, Shishidaja, thank you very much. I'm so happy to be with you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dotton. These were very interesting. And I am pretty sure that we must learn how to behave ourselves more respectfully. And maybe this is the clue for our survival. And now I am closing our first part of this session and starting our second part, which is a debate with our speakers. And
Yes, welcome back to the second part of our event. I have to introduce another company speaker at this point. I refer to Mr. Denis Biskup, Regional Business Development and Marketing Manager for Southern Eastern Europe of Zumtobel Group. Are you with us, Mr.?
I am.
Excellent. I'm just informing about our participants and ask them again, Bala did it before, to submit their questions to the architects by the Q&A session. And we may start with these questions. Balázs, should you begin with your first question for Telemakos, for our first speaker?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Telemakos. I was wondering about your presentation, that you're very much influenced by this villa architecture, and it was a very good example, very touching and fine movements you have. And how do you think about this post-pandemic era, how our time spent at home, how will change the quality and the quantity of the time we spend at home after this situation, and how will this influence architecture?
Thank you, Balázs, for the question. As I said in the beginning, introducing this villa architecture, as you named it, I think that architecture is in a way a building of a space of intimacy, of protection. So that is a home mainly. But what makes architecture, real architecture, and what is different from just a structure, is that you create this space of intimacy, this sense of protection, but at the same time, you have to have an openness. You have to have a contact with cosmos. You protect yourself from cosmos, but you have also to be open to it. Now, what I see from this during the pandemic situation is that we get all the more closed. It's more closed than it should be. We lose this contact with cosmos. And I believe post-pandemic that we will desire to get more in contact with it. And this can be done only through true architecture. I believe that this security and this confinement and this restriction will possibly make our desire for contact with cosmos, I mean, not only with natural elements of it, but with people, it will make it even stronger. This difficulty will make our desire for contact even stronger.
Thank you very much. May I continue, Balázs, with another question, which look simple, like a haiku from Haim, but it's always, in the simplicity, it's always complexity. And I will address the next question to Denis, which I just introduced. And my question is, how does light affect people?
Thank you for your question. So as all of you probably know, so light is four-dimensional thing. So we have intensity, direction, color, and the time. And all of those four dimensions affects people on three levels. So either visual or emotional or biological. How do we measure this? Visual is with the glare, with the stuff that you can actually see. Emotional is when you're born. So if you are Generation X or Generation Z, or if you're millennials, so when you're walking through this I don't know, shopping mall, you will not enter every store. You will enter just this one that in first second you see that it's something that is interesting for you. And the third one is actually biological. So we are humans. We have circadian rhythms, which is 24-hour light, so from the morning to the night, during the night, and again. And we use as well biological aspects for the controlling of the hormones, so cortisol and melatonin. So how do we affect all those? We have impact of visual, and the result is comfort. So do we feel comfortable in this situation or not? Impact of emotional is result as a balance. So are you okay? How is your spirit? And biological, which is the most important, but usually the last one on our design task, is biological, and the result is health. So conclusion is that light affects people on three ways: visual, emotional, and biological. And the idea of the architects and all of us is to create a situation where we have all of those three together, not to have focus just on one of them. Thank you very much for your question.
We thank you very much, Dennis. Let me step to the next speaker. I would like to ask a question to Dorte because I've introduced her to the panel before. Yes, Dorte, you showed us that we are social beings, and we want this even if we don't need this. But my question goes to another direction, and I would like to know from you, what do you think in the future of architecture, about temporary architecture? How would they affect, or what's the benefit of thinking about temporary structures for healthcare, for social places, for cultural places, so on and so forth? We need your microphone.
Yeah. Structures. I think because of what's happening, we need to think of structures which are more adaptable. What I've seen in our office, for instance, at the moment, everybody are at home, but we need to change the way we are using the space in this common period, because we cannot stay at home. We cannot stay at home forever. So we need to be able to change things. And I think this adaptability is an important factor that we have to deal with. And also from a sustainable point of view, it's immensely important to be able to think of adaptability.
Yeah, sure. I totally agree. Thank you very much. I would like to address a question to Cosmin. You're still with us? Yes, I can see you. It's a difficult.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, excellent. You're there. My question would be, Cosmin, what are the plans of TerraSteel for this special period?
First of all, we want to protect our people, because we are working at a very good level, at a normal level. But besides of the protecting our people, we try to protect our society. So we make a lot of donation to hospitals, not only in Bistrița, in all the regions where we are working. And besides of this, we develop some solutions for trying to stop this epidemic. Very fast solution that we can deliver in 7-10 days. And those solutions we can discuss if somebody is interested. We are very concerned about this, how we are concerned about the environment with the other products that I showed you before. Here we are very interested in stopping this or helping to decrease it. So we have solutions and we are very involved in this. Although from our 4D, we were talking all the time about the 4D. Now we develop very much the delocalization D. So mainly 80% of our TESA personnel is working from home in this moment, and some of them, they are watching this conference.
Great, thank you very much, Cosmin. Balázs, I think you should take the lead at this point.
Thank you, Sherban. I address my next question to Mr. Dotan. You talked about very much our attitude should change, and it is quite clear that we are in the middle of a transition. So our world is rapidly changing now. What do you think is the appropriate behavior which will help us through this time of transition?
I don't know how long would be time of transition. I don't think we can measure it in a year or 2 or 5, and I don't know whether we are visionary or not. I just think that we need to, we're going with technology, and technology is fantastic. We're going with technology and innovations, and we are becoming more and more robot type of people. And I always ask the question, I wrote a little book, and I'm asking you, Balázs, which one is more clever? A person, a human being, or a duck? A duck, a goose. Which one is more smart? Just don't think about it. Just tell me, what do you think? Just like that. A duck or a human being?
You mean smart?
Yeah, more clever, more smart.
It depends.
You know, I'm ducks on the river, which goes in front of my house. I intend to say that they are quite clever.
They fly from one side of the world to the other without a compass, and they never collide with each other, and they go back. They can swim, they can jump. They don't create robots that will replace them and replace their organs. They use one set of clothes for lifetime, while we use endless amount of clothes to cover our body, shoes, etc. They never destroy nature. And it's not only the ducks, it's a metaphorical answer. I think that we are in a process where we're so smart that we're inventing machines to replace us, and also will maybe destroy us. And so how do we work with technology? I think we need to get back to our senses, all of us at school. 5 senses, not 4D, but 6D. One is ear, one is nose, one is mouth, not only to eat, but also to kiss. And one is to see, and one is to touch. Yeah, just, you pass by a flower, just stop and take a sniff. And it doesn't have to be only a joint or whatever people do, and I'm joking, but enjoy nature. And the last one is connect to your inner sense, into your voice, because every one of us has a voice. The voice of truth. And
Here, can I interrupt yourself?
Please.
4D is for the company. This was developed coming from 6D. This is very true. We still have to work a lot until we bring the companies to the level of how we are as persons. But this is a different organization, and you cannot control it how you can control yourself. So
yes. I love you. This is perfect, because we need to be in the 6D and not in the 4D. But 4D is already better than 2D and 3D, right? So it's not a criticism, rather than is going up. And I think that by connecting to ourselves as a human being, because we're born human beings, we're not ducks, but we're not robots. And if we connect to ourselves, we can create communities which are about security and beauty, intimacy and delicacy. We don't have, and not you and I as architects, but there's 1 billion people who want to be rich, and they want to build high-rise buildings, and they want to fly to the moon, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I love, Dorothy, I love the libraries where you have the books. I don't know if people use the books so much because the young generation is reading that, but the libraries became social places. So as architect, we should create now places for society, places for people to come in and enjoy each other instead of being isolated during the corona, or isolated because they're just on the computers and technology, so they don't socialize anymore. They're afraid of each other.
And be very aware of that we are not scared of this. This is happening to us. We have to deal with it, but don't get scared.
Exactly. I want to say one last thing as an example.
Try to make the best of it.
Yeah. You know, we used to live in China, everyone 40 years ago, merely 40 years ago, everyone used to live on the ground floor with the courtyard type of buildings. And now everyone is living in high-rise buildings. So the Chinese way of life, 1.5 billion people are now living in 4 apartments around elevator and stair, and they don't know each other. They don't know their neighbors. They're isolated. And so they lost their culture of 10,000 years in 40 years because of what? Developing high-rise buildings that our developers and architects and leaders are pushing for, and then we're losing our culture and our humanity. So I think we need to get back to our senses. Let's go back to the old European cities. Let's see the old order and adapt the wisdom of our ancestors. I think we lost tremendous amount.
Here I would like to add something. Mr. Balázs says in the beginning of this conference, the change is the only thing that never changes. So this is also my motto in life. So that's why I remember very well. And this is what we have to do. We have to adapt and we have to change.
And yes, we also have to let things go. So we also have to let things go. This is a time where we cannot stick ourselves to our former lives and former behaviors. We have to understand that the world is moving. The life is a flow, and maybe it hurts. Yes, it is. It does hurt. Yes. But we have to live the change, I'm sure.
Totally agree. If you may allow me to say something else, it's not only about change, it's also about sharing. And this is what we are doing now. Balázs, I think we have a question from the audience. Would you like to read it?
Yes, we have one question in the Q&A session from one of my old friends. And maybe this is a perfect time to close this debate section and start our part 3, which is the Q&A. So if you could please make this short video. Okay, so we have a question from Gábor Cimborás. I have some brand new questions emerging from the public. People are asking whether it is rational to build big schools, to centralize institutions. Is the pandemic such a thing that results that we should split big community projects into smaller, decentralized buildings? That goes against the previous concepts of the rational and compact city.
Very good question. I think it's addressed to all the panelists. Please mention who wants to first answer. Do we have to split things, or we have to keep them compact?
Well, I have to say that is not not a real thing that we couldn't bring back together. That splitting things into smaller parts doesn't mean it couldn't remain compact. So the city is livable if we have smaller, dense areas and we don't put everything together in the center. But surely it is a long. Yes, Dorte?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure this, because this question is asked because of Corona. It's asked because of this pandemic, yeah? And I'm not quite sure whether being a condensed city or being a village changes anything to disease, because whether you live in a high rise or you live in a urban sprawl or in farms, you meet and then you can contract the disease. So I think it's this whole thing is more about behavior than it is about how we build. And I think if we start building things so that everybody can walk around the world 2 meters apart, I think we are building some awful places for people. I think we have to handle this, and we have to grow up and learn to handle this, because it's probably going to happen more than this one time. But in the end of the day, please don't become disorientated from yourself. Please, please don't. At least that's my point of view.
Yeah, sure. It's just a temporary gap. I see some other questions. I'm taking the next question coming from András. He says, hooray, we are not going to be killed by nuclear bombs, but by viruses. So will this change our attitude from bunkers to higher hygiene? How will it change our specifications if we cannot breathe the same air anymore? Who wants to try to answer? András.
I can volunteer.
This is why we are
Well,
here.
you see, I always answer with this. It doesn't make it. This is sculpture. This is a painting. This is a structure. This is space, color, 7Ds. It is unbelievable. But it comes from this. The roots and the flowers, they work together. There's no flowers without roots. There are roots without flowers, yes. So we have to connect. I think that we, as architects, and I'm preaching it quite intensely now, we need to focus more and more on our profession as being doctors, and not only being designers. Because what does architecture mean? If I ask 99% of the architects, probably they don't know what the words archos tekton mean. They forgot in the past 2,000 years. Maybe Philomakos, he knows that archos tekton is master builder, master mason. And therefore it's about construction and building, and it's about the whole orchestra of know-how, knowledge. This is the architect. He's a conductor of a symphony, huge symphony. It's called construction. It has art and physics and money and clients and music and everything, not only design. We need to design healthy buildings. Our buildings are not healthy. And so whether a building is a sprawl out or whether it's a high density tower, the buildings must be healthy buildings. So now we have to identify, what does it mean to design a healthy building? And that's where we can really learn from nature. Healthy building has got so much. It's energy saving, yes, but it's how much air, clean air is coming. Every building needs clear, clean air changes all the time. The materials, the finished material, the internal materials, organic materials. There's so many things that we as architects need to work on, and not 3 or 4. We talk about tens of thousands of designers and architects, interior decorators, interior designers, and engineers working on creating healthy buildings and healthy environments. And if we start looking at architecture as science, as doctors, we may come up with new type of buildings which can help us in this terrible corona-free environment, I think. And I think we can do this. We just need to be humble and be more doctors. Maybe.
May I add something?
Ola, we still get some questions. Would you like to read some more?
May I'd like to add something.
Yes, please.
I just said, of course, we have to make healthier buildings, naturally. We are architects, and we should serve humanity in the way that modernism in architecture started the previous century, in order to serve all the needs humanity had after the Industrial Revolution and the First and Second World Wars. It is quite important. But I just tried to do this short historical documentation of the thing, and I understood that pandemic is not something really, it's not at all new. It happens now, and it has already happened many, many times during civilization. So it's not something, a curse that happens at this point because we are so bad towards nature. Naturally, we are very bad towards nature. I don't say that we are not, but it is a bit independent to that. It is connected to the fact that there is civilization, that there are cities, because a pandemic and a virus can spread only among citizens, among cities. If we were all isolated in our houses in villages and there were no ships, no general ships, no airplanes, nothing, there would be no pandemics. So my approach is, I am afraid, a bit fatalist, but that's it in a way. I think that pandemics, it's a disaster. It's something that it's really bad, but it is linked to civilization. So we can, of course, service our profession. We can design in a healthier or safer manner, but we cannot, from this approach, stop the pandemics from happening. And of course, we shouldn't slip into this danger to overly, technocratically, safely design everything and lose the essence of a city. This is not, it's very difficult to be lost, I think. It's so linked with collectivity and civilization and human contact that it can be lost. Apart from that, from what I understand, all the speakers and Haim and Dorte spoke in a way against immoderation, which is quite important. Though even if I also did that, I cannot deny that in creations like the Parthenon or Hagia Sophia, there is already exaggeration in them. These are the creations of a superpower. So I even cannot speak exactly against this kind of exaggeration, of immoderation, because in a way it is immoderation, but it means the way it has created something is different from other ways that immoderation concludes in absolute bad expenditure of money and destruction of nature and the landscape. Okay, this doesn't mean that I'm pessimistic or not optimistic. It's something that would happen, in my opinion. Of course, we have to be careful, and that's it.
Thank you. We have a few more questions. I'm reading the next one. It's from Tanya Farkas. Do you think in order for architecture to integrate fully into nature and be sustainable, healthy, as you mentioned, we should also start using better, more conscious materials, such as ones developed through biodesign and biotechnology? It's an interesting question because you know, technology is also a diverse thing. And who would like to answer this?
Here I can answer. I can put also video. I don't know if you can hear me or.
Yes, we can.
Sorry, I moved a little bit on the balcony after the last session, but we are using the metal in the sandwich panel, which is the paint is biotechnology, and also the galvanized profiles, which has aluminum, magnesium, zinc, will not let the zinc to go into the ground. So this is the main concept of lead. So that's why I wanted to interfere. I don't know if I was heard.
Yes, you were.
And besides this, also the buildings are reusable. So those buildings can last for 40 years, and in 10 or 15 years, these buildings can be removed. Actually, they can be taken and moved from place to place. And that's very good, I think, for the CO2 carbon and for the Earth in general. So this is the idea. This is the main idea of LEED. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you know, this question is so wonderful that I think this is the way to go. We need to really now with technology and computers and great memory and cloud, we can really try to break a lot of secrets of Mother Earth and understand how does nature create something like that? I mean, no architects can ever design something like that because every flower, every petal is different size, but it's all about new life and birth and light, the light and the color, everything has function. And so if we learn from that, and we do, a lot of laboratories now, labs all over the world are studying that, clothes, our fashion should use natural biological materials and that can last for generations and not just 10 years and we throw it away and we'll buy a new one. It should be clothes that are about natural ventilation and recyclable and self-washing, and it gets the energy from the air, and when it's cold, it's hot, and when it's and the body is working with us, not just applied on our skin. We are so primitive; it's insane. I mean, you look at the fish; they have a thin skin, but it functions. You know, I mean, look at the bears. Look at the it's incredible. The duck again can fly in minus, I don't know what, 20, 30 degrees, and then it can also be in hot weather. So the whole ecosystem of the body and the feathers. Our clothes are so stupid because we are not clever, and so if we are humble and say, okay, let's learn from nature about all this immense knowledge, and we can learn about new materials, we can achieve incredible savings, incredible comfort, and create new lifestyle, creating many things. Like we don't need cars, not necessarily because we order a car by phone, but we don't need it because mobility should be through the brain. And we're being transported without being there physically. We don't need to be there physically all the time. There's so many areas where we can learn from nature, and this energy, everything is about energy, the energy of the mind, energy of the heat, energy of the water. And we can start living a lot more smart and economically. So this question is only the beginning. It's like the flower that just opens up. And it's a wonderful question to students because they answer it with designs for 4 months, a whole semester. It's great. Thank you for this question.
Okay, shall we move to the next question? It is from Ahmed Yei or Jay, I don't know your name, how to pronounce, I'm sorry. So the question is, should we build new apartment complexes with possible hospital units incorporated in a space where in normal times to be used as recreational space? Or do we need to build the public spaces like schools with necessary infrastructure to be transformable to hospital or care units? Dorte?
Dorte, what do you think?
I think we shouldn't be this scared. And I think what we've seen the last month is an enormous adaptability in society, within people working together. And that's what we should treasure. Of course, we should be able to change buildings and do stuff when we have a crisis, as we have at the moment. But I think building everything from within the idea of a crisis is, then you're too scared. I think you should look at Doton's flower and see possibilities instead of scary viruses. Because I think the resilience and the sustainability of people and of communities are very, very strong. And those are the ones, and those are the things that are going to really save us or bring us to the next level.
Yeah, so a house should stay a house, a hospital should stay a hospital.
Well, I think you should build structures which have fringes, which have possibilities, but not necessarily think, oh, all my classrooms have to be transformed into an IC units. Don't, but build buildings so that we can adapt and we can react on things that are happening, because now we have this crisis. If we as a human race doesn't start to behave in a proper way, the water is the next big crisis we're going to have. And then what do we do with all these classrooms transformed into IC units because they can't float? So I think believe in the resilience and the quality of communities and working together, believe in that. And go with the flowers of Doton. Okay?
Yes, of course, thank you. Read the next question, Balázs, which I got again from András. He said, the distance between people will have to increase, at least until we can control our biological environment better. So back to nature, as Mr. Dotan suggests, would be available only for a few. What about the rest? I don't want to be provocative, but this will be the main question for architects and urban designers too. What do you think, Haim?
Well, I mean, no. Nature does not imply that you need to have a 10-acre lot or 1 square kilometer. I mean, one flower every morning, one flower is already nature, but you have to be aware that there is a flower there and therefore enjoy the beauty of one single flower, you know, or the scent of a rose or an apple, fresh apple, the color. I mean, just enjoy the beauty and the nutritious and everything that is in one apple, one flower. So you don't need big spaces. For instance, in China, for generation. They build north-south kind of thing, and they build these high-rise buildings facing south because this is where the sun is. So what do they do on the facade? They put the clothes to dry, natural drying. They don't buy Chinese, hundreds of millions. They do not buy a drying machine, dryers. They put the clothes to be ventilated, which is very, very natural and organic and ecological. But now, because of the corona, everyone can start growing their little flowers and little vegetables, tomatoes, and have it on the south side. They have plenty of light. And so the living room is going to be green. And all of a sudden our buildings from outside and inside become green buildings because they produce beautiful smells, beautiful flowers, beautiful little vegetables for local personal usage. So this is brilliant. And by the fact that we are now connecting to nature, we can enjoy our life a lot more. We're more intimate. So I think that the fact that we are now in cubicles of 2 square meters can give us a different scale in many places. Our plazas do not need to be vast and huge. We can have smaller plazas or big plazas being subdivided into compartments. I think everything in our in architecture can be interchangeable. So schools can have modules for medical units that can plug in. We know a lot about plug-in cities and plug-in buildings and all that. We don't have to be afraid of this. This is technology, but we need to create, as architects, we need to create abundant space which is open and adaptable to changes over time and very economical, just like the Chinese built a hospital in 10 days. We should do it design-wise much better and have all these humane provisions for the sick people, because after all they need also care, and they need flowers to look at. By the way, they don't need only doctors, they also need human care, and they need also a view to the outside to enjoy. This is part of the self-healing. 70% of self-healing is our brain, 30% is our body. That's another altogether. What do you think, Dorte?
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed, but I tend to think that people are much more polite. Something happens.
Yes.
When you're outside, people are more polite. They have more
They're
patience.
more humble.
There is
Yes.
a sort of grace interlinking. And of course, I'm afraid when this is all solved and they got the vaccine and we all cured, then this bubble of politeness disappears again. But I must say, I'm really enjoying this politeness. I think it's lovely.
Regarding this previous question about how we should design with distances as architects, even public space, I think that it is wise to realize that this is already a pandemic. The virus is everywhere, from China to Latin America to the States or Russia. It's everywhere. So we cannot stop it from spreading. It has already spread it everywhere, and it is practically impossible that everybody won't get it. Everybody will catch it, I believe, in a way, but because the vaccine takes time in order to what we are trying now as humanity is to try to stop a bit the fact that we will get all ill in order to support our medical systems, so that we don't have these failures that we saw in Italy or elsewhere. But I think that it doesn't help us if we don't have in mind that this is already a pandemic. And if we, in a way, we set some rules that we have 2 or 3 meters in a restaurant, or we design this awful, I saw this awful beach cabanas out of plexiglass in order to bathe in the summer. This is practically nonsense. It won't stop it. It won't stop it. That's it. It is a pandemic. We have to realize the fact.
Tirabakos, can I answer something to you?
Yes.
When everyone comes to many countries in the world, I'm staying in China. Before the pandemic, you go to restaurants, and there's 6 people sitting on a table and eating, and everyone is in their own zone. They don't talk to each other. This is a pandemic. What happened with this telephone is an amazing pandemic, which is everyone is a zombie somewhere else. They don't socialize, they don't talk, they just exchange something so perhaps shallow. It's another generation, the generation of these monsters. These are the pandemics, these are the viruses that cause people to be inhumane and unsocial. So it's not a 2 square meters space per person, but it's what you feel inside yourself. And when you run away from other people and constantly run away into this machine, then I think it doesn't matter how far you are from each other. You can be very close to each other, but you're not going to hug each other because you're going to be in another world of the iPhone or whatever people make you buy and buy and buy, which is consuming greed of the big corporations and technology. So we have to balance that too. So is it pandemic of the technology or is it pandemic of the corona? That's a question.
Okay, thank you for this debate. We still have a few questions in the Q&A, but I'm sorry to say that our time is over and we should make a closing session to this today's event. Sherban, would you start the closing, please?
Well, first of all, I would like to thank everybody, especially to our speakers and of course to the public. I haven't seen them, but I just saw numbers going around 90 to 100 people, and thank you very much for being with us. And I really hope to meet you all in person in the future in our session in Budapest. That was really interesting, and I have to tell you that I'm very, very, very happy that I can have this comfort to welcome everybody in my living room and to talk about very nice, important things from home. I think that we are spoiled by this webinar. Thank you, Florin. Thank you for all the staff, the technical staff, which is behind. Isabella, Alexandra, Claudio. They have no faces now, but I know that they are there and taking care about everything to happen well. Thank you very much and see you soon. And stay negative and think positive.
Yeah, thank you very much too for very, very, very nice event. Thank you very much, Zoltan, for your help today for this webinar. If you want to say something like in the finish.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yes, thank you very much. And see you after tomorrow in a new webinar during Sofia, Share Sofia. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much to everyone.
Thank you.
I think that was a very interesting afternoon. I think that this virus is a teacher, and I really like the English word of patient, because the sickness is always teaching something to us. And the first thing to understand that we should be patient, that we should be more patient in life. And what I see is we have to find a more diverse and more complex way of understanding how life goes. And we understand that technology is a very complex thing, but still I have a lingering feeling that technology always picks up 1 or 2 or 3 points of view and giving a very simple answer, which is not equal to the complexity of life itself. So thank you very much for joining this event, and I hope that we can meet us in person. We have a date for the Budapest Share conference in the 2nd of July, but we shall see how the things go on. if we don't have the opportunity to meet in person, we will continue these webinar sections. So everybody, thank you for joining us.